This is Ike Allred with another episode of Create or Die. I'm telling you, it's going to be a good one. It's late. I'm feeling a little crazy. I know I should get more sleep, but I'm here. I'm in it for you and for me. So let's get this party started. Now, to kick things off, we're going to do things a little different. Haven't done anything quite like this before, but we're going to bring in some virtual guests, if you will. I'm going to comment on some knowledge nugs that I've found from a little social media app that you may or may not be familiar with, TikTok. All the kids are into it. Check it out. But just a little aside, with TikTok, not KitKat or whatever, you got to train that algorithm. So if you just open it up, it's going to ask you a couple questions. It's going to be like, hey, you're an old guy. You probably want to see these random pictures of girls running around in bikinis, but that's not healthy. We don't need that. So do a couple searches. Search for things that you're interested in. How to start a YouTube channel, Blender tutorials, whatever it is. Don't be afraid. Just go do it, and then it'll be like, hey, this guy likes that. Let's serve him up more of that, and then you'll have that algorithm whipped into shape, if you will. Now let's go ahead and roll the first clip. Now this is from Sam Parr, who is the co-host of one of my favorite podcasts. Yes, I do listen to other podcasts, not just Create or Die. But the podcast that Mr. Sam Parr co-hosts is My First Million. You should check it out if you haven't obtained that first million, and even if you have, give it a listen. There's lots of good stuff, and of course I'm not being paid to prop up any of these influencers. Just trust me. So let's listen to this.
I think there's like two categories of people. There's people who do stuff, and there's people who talk about stuff. Yes, go. I get like 100 to 200 DMs a day, and it's like, hey, I'm going to launch this, and this. What do you think about this? And my reply to them is always the same thing. Awesome. Send me the link when it's live. And so if you're the type of person who talks and doesn't do, I think ideas are irrelevant, because I think you have to get reps in. Turning what's in your brain into something that you could see and touch, that is a skill. And if you don't already have that skill of doing, ideas don't matter. I think there's like two.
Okay, there you go. So that's crazy. I mean, how many people out there are like, we're just waiting for that big idea? You're at work. It's like, share with me some ideas. All that matter are ideas. But what Sam Parr is saying here, or at least what I'm getting out of it, is ideas are table stakes. Those are things that everyone has. We've all lived our own unique lives, and we've experienced different things. We've got ideas, our own ideas, and those are irrelevant unless you're the type of person who is a doer. Okay, so an idea without action is dead. It's nothing. So speaking of people who did something, there's a designer, entrepreneur, and social media influencer that I've recently started following, Mr. Chris Do. D-O. Check him out. I've got a little clip to share of him, and in this case, it's actually not a clip. It's something that I'm going to read, because on TikTok here, it's just a list with some music behind it. And I'll go ahead and read that to you. It says, and this is at the Chris Do, so check him out on TikTok. He says, I'm 51, started YouTube at 42, got serious on Instagram at 46, YouTube subs now at 2.1 million, Instagram followers 880,000, LinkedIn followers 420,000, Twitter 100,000. I did it, you can too, but you have to start. Give before you ask, focus on getting better and not the numbers. Learn before you scale. Phew. That's awesome. That's some good advice there. How many of us get caught up in the numbers, right? It's in our face all the time. You open up YouTube, you're ready to post another video, and you see that your previous video just got 15 views or none, and it can be a little demoralizing. But we just need to consign ourselves to the reality that initially there's not going to be much of a following. Sure, every once in a while there will be that fluke instance where you captured that perfect cat video and it just goes viral or whatever. But in the end, what is that? I mean, I guess there's a business or some level of creating behind that, but that's not the kind of success I'm looking for, and I would wager you're not in that camp either. Okay, let's roll another video that will, again, let's stick with the social media theme. It seems to be all the rage, and no matter what kind of business you're looking to create or what kind of ideas you want to share, a lot of it revolves around social media this day, like it or not. So this is Mr. Beast. Let's hear what kind of mind-blowing advice he has to give us.
A lot of people get analysis paralysis, and they'll just sit there and they'll plan their first video for 3 months. And any of you listening, especially if you have 0 videos on your channel, your first video is not going to give views. Period. It's not. Your first 10 are not going to give views. I can very confidently say that. So stop sitting there and thinking for months and months on end, and just get to work and start uploading. All you need to do is, this applies to people who have not uploaded videos but have dreams of being a YouTuber, is make 100 videos and improve something every time. Do that. And then on your 101st video, we'll start talking, like maybe you can get some views, but your first 100 are going to start. Just make 100 videos, improve something each time, and then talk to me on your 101st video. A lot of people get it.
Awesome. So that goes right in line with what Christo was saying, is, initially it's not going to be there, and you've got to concentrate on growth rather than the numbers. Okay. So that's Mr. Beast's advice. What are you going to do with it? Does this resonate with you at all? Are you picking up what I'm putting down? Do you agree? Are these nugz of knowledge or not? That's the question you got to ask yourself. And I'm just here to serve them up. Your friendly fast food employee behind the counter trying to serve something up. I told you it was late. It's late. Talking backwards over here. Now, you might be saying, I'm afraid to do that thing. Yeah, I've always wanted to start a YouTube channel on beekeeping, or I've always wanted to create that iPhone app, or I know that there's an audience out there for my kazoo music. Whatever it is, it's scary, right? And you're afraid that people might see it and think less of you. The fear is real. The struggle is real. But a dear friend and mentor of mine, former co-founder of MX, the company I work for, Mr. Brandon DeWitt, had something to say on that subject. He said, "Be passionate to the point of ridicule." I love that. You should have, I wish I had the clip with me. He said it multiple times, but we did capture it on video at least a couple times, and that's powerful. And that was some advice I remember him giving to a room full of entrepreneurs, former, veterans, former defenders of our great nation. And that was one of the key pieces of advice he shared, is be passionate to the point of ridicule. What is it that you love so much that you're not afraid of being ridiculed for sharing it. Maybe that's a wake-up call for you. What's the worst thing that could happen? You know, you get up on stage, you've been paid to speak at this big event, you've made a name for yourself, but then something happens. You lose your train of thought. You're struggling. Ideas pop in your mind like, oh my goodness, how can this be happening? This is the worst thing that's ever happened. They're going to demand their money back. And you might think, where is he getting this example from? I don't see him up on stage anywhere. I'm glad you asked, because yeah, it's not me. Mr. Simon Sinek, who you've probably seen all over the socials. He's a New York Times best-selling author and motivational speaker and all-around decent human. Let's hear what he's got to say.
There's an organization out there. They invited me to speak. Amazing honor. And in the middle of my speech, I completely lost my train of thought. Mind went completely blank. So I went quiet, could not find my place. And then the panic sets in. And so I stop and I turn to the audience and I decide to include them. So I turn to them and I say, do you ever have that experience where your mind goes completely blank and panic sets in? I said, I'm having that experience right now. And let me tell you, I'm loving every second of it because it makes me feel alive. And they applauded like you have no idea. And that's, I think, what vulnerability is, which is we use our own struggles and tribulations as a service. This is going to make them feel so uncomfortable. How can I take care of them? And I think this idea of taking accountability and living in service, that those two things are inextricably linked.
I love that. And that, I just thought about this, Brandon DeWitt that I just spoke of and talked to him talked about him in the past tense. We lost him to cancer a year and a half ago or so. And after being diagnosed, he was a proponent for life and what it's all about, to live and be vulnerable and be your best self and not allow yourself to be victim to your circumstances, but instead embrace it. And he had another great aphorism, and I'll probably butcher it, but it was something along the lines of, pain is a luxury of the living. So think about that. I struggle with arthritis and gout in my joints. We just had some big storms roll through, and that's really acts up, and my ankles swelled up, and my elbows are super painful, and I think, why is this happening to me? I don't see anyone else having this problem, but it's a reminder of my vulnerability and the fact that I am alive. And so let's not waste this opportunity that we have here on this earth for a relatively short amount of time. And let's be our best selves. Let's create, let's build. You have that idea, jump on it. Let's get that thing rolling, bro. Or brosette. Either way. So yeah, I appreciate that. He, Simon in that example was able to take something that is absolutely the worst nightmare for a lot of people, and I think his initial gut reaction was probably one of worry and fear, but he turned it around. Another fear that people have, or something that, like Mr. Beast said, lends itself to this analysis paralysis, is the expectation of perfection. I have a couple of family members, close family members, who really struggle with making progress on certain things because they know it's not going to be perfect, or the situation isn't perfect, or they get started and things aren't going perfectly, and because they know it can't be perfect, they abandon it. And I don't want to make light of what is, I'm sure, a struggle for many, and I know we all have a little bit of it in us, this desire to be the best, to be perfect, to always be comparing ourselves. But another aphorism that needs to make its way onto my wall behind me is done is better than perfect. I mean, this is the difference between an amateur and a professional. As a artist of things of your own creating, whether that be music or illustrations or funny videos or whatever, short stories, and you're your only critic, you can have the luxury of noodling on that forever if you like. But when it's time to ship that stuff, when it's time to do it as a job, done is way better than perfect. And by doing, there are things that we can learn. There are metrics that can be gleaned from the performance, good or bad, of whatever it is you ship. Back to the example of social media. You can post one video on one platform and get 15 views, put it on another, get 10,000, and then maybe there's another platform, TikTok, where it's constantly 200 views, and it may take several days to get there, but it seems to plateau, and the TikTok algorithm says, okay, you've got your allotment of views, that's all you're going to get. But there are things you can do, levers you can pull to try it out differently. I could find the clip, but I might as well just say it. Gary Vayner talks about, or Gary V, talks about his process and how he'll re-upload a video 5-6 times with different titles, different thumbnail images to see what performs best. And he'll have a video that's hitting around 40,000, which is pretty small for him, and then it'll blow up and be in the millions on the 5th try. And that's the type of iteration we can do on anything, whether it be our graphic design work, the little comic strip that we're putting out there on Instagram, or the music clips that we're putting on SoundCloud or Spotify songs, whatever it is in your world. That app that you placed on the App Store, people might stumble upon it and find it and tell their friends, or you might do a little bit of marketing to get that thing to eventually be seen and downloaded and worthwhile. So what is it that you're going to go and do? Let this be a wake-up call to you to live life to its fullest, to not let those excuses get in the way anymore. Start that YouTube channel, start that business, take initiative at work, and run with that idea for generating brand awareness. Ask permission or don't. Mistakes of boldness. Write that novel, create that product, just go for it. And that brings me to my final clip of the episode from Mr. Paul Scanlon. And honestly, I don't know what he does. He's from the UK. He's got a great voice. He's an older gentleman, probably late 50s, mid-late 50s, and just seems to have some good knowledge. And this is what he has to do. What he has to say about just going for it.
Encouraging people to go for it, because going for it means you are going to come across an awareness that you are better and more ready than you think you are in the armchair anticipating it. If it excites you, go for it. If it scares you and excites you, I would have a go for it even quicker. Encouraging people to go for it.
I love it. If it excites you and scares you, then you know you've got something there. And let me tell you, there are things like that. Starting a new business is definitely one of those things. For me personally, early on, 2004, late 2004, being fresh dropping out of college and working at a dead-end blue-collar job, I decided to just go for it and quit my job. I had $2,000 from a 401k that I cashed in and took a big penalty on it later and whatever. Got an office space. It was pretty cheap, but felt like I needed that. Started throwing myself out there. I mean, the reason I decided to do it in the first place was because I had a company that I'd been doing odd jobs for reach out to me and say, hey, do you know anything about Flash? Could you create us a Flash website? And I bid it. I can't remember if it was because that was their budget or what, but I bid it for $500. Now, this was 2004, and that was more money back then, but it was still super minimal. And for some reason I thought, hey, this is more than I make in a week, and if I can do one of these a week, then it'll be worth it to do my own business, and that should be no problem, right? Because I got one job. How hard is it to get another and another if I'm full-time? And I knew nothing about scoping out projects or whatever. And this is, unfortunately, it's not one of those stories where I built it into this huge business and had a multi-million-dollar exit. No. Quite the opposite. I made well below the extreme poverty line for that year. Ended up living with my mother-in-law, and it was rough, and felt like I never had a break. I was constantly worried about work, and if I wasn't working, I just felt horrible. There was no such thing as a weekend, and so I was scared to death of ever doing freelance work again, or even entertaining the idea of starting a business, because that failed. I made $8,000 that entire year, and had to rely on help from my church, and it was a humbling time. But what that did do for me is realize that I can't just go back to working a 9-to-5 job doing something that I hate, like digging ditches, washing cars, working at a refinery, whatever. Instead, it lit a fire in me that, I know these tools well enough, Photoshop, Flash, whatever, to maybe get a job as a graphic designer. So that day that I finally came to that realization, I told my wife, probably not going to be coming home tonight. I'm going to work on building myself a portfolio website and apply for this job that I found in the want ads. Yes, an actual physical newspaper. And applied for that job, and then submitted it through the email. Go check out my portfolio website link, here you go. Went to bed at 10 a.m. and then was awoken by my wife at 5 or 6 p.m. at night with a phone call from that company asking if I could come in for an interview the next day. And long story short, this was late 2005, summer 2005, spring, whatever, it's not important, and got that job. I had that hunger, literal hunger, and drive to put myself out there. I was blessed to have an awesome interview. I was asking for peanuts at the time, like $12 an hour is all I needed, I told them to, and what is that? I think that worked out to be like $28,000 a year, which after having a year of $8,000 was a big deal. Got in there, learned, did my thing, and gratefully was able to quickly receive increases in my compensation, and the rest is history. Ever since then, been working in this industry. I took a chance, and it was scary, and I survived. And my wife and I look fondly back at that time where we struggled and really felt what it's like to be alive. And while we were grateful for that and what it taught us, we it's uncomfortable. We don't necessarily want to go through that again. But I've learned a thing or two. And guess what? I'm still working. I've got a day job. I'm a little smarter. I know how to scope a project. I know how to get the word out. I can leverage my network of working professionals that I've built over the past 17, 18 years or whatever. And I'm trying to build this thing, this create or die. It was an idea. It was a podcast. It is a podcast. And it's an LLC now. It's a business. It's becoming a thing. The wife and I are going to go to the NAB conference in a month. And, use that as a write-off to have a trip to Vegas. But also learn a thing or two. Hopefully get some interviews with some of my favorite C4D and ZBrush, influencers. And we're just going to go for it. And that's what we're doing. And we're going to do it while I still have a day job, and I'm thankful for that. And that's one of those learnings that I picked up from the past, is that it's good to take it slow and be smart. Make sure you don't burn any bridges. And that's what we're doing. And we'll just take it a day at a time, and we'll continue to think big. But I just wanted to share a little bit, be a little bit vulnerable about some of my experiences in the past with this type of thing, and that I can relate and challenge you to go for it. What is it that you're going to go for? And you're going to sacrifice something. If you leave your job to start a business, it's going to be scary. You're going to work hard to try to build that thing, and you may be having to get creative with your finances or stretch a dollar a lot farther to make ends meet for a little while. Or if you're doing what I'm doing and you're building something in your copious free time, which is minimal, then you're going to be recording a podcast at 1 in the morning. And truth be told, this is my second take. I did the first one and it was okay, but I couldn't ship it, because I had learned, from some of this advice that I've tried to share, these knowledge nugs, that you've got to learn from your past mistakes. You've got to learn from those episodes that you've shipped out the door in the past. So anyways, I get pumped talking about this stuff. I'm excited about what the future holds for me, what it holds for you. I'm grateful to be alive. Life is beautiful. Now go and make the most of it. Until next time, create or die.